there's people in this community that are very involved with people, and then there are people that want to be left alone. So it's very unique. The desert is very cleansing, and it's also, if you're supposed to be here.
Right.
I mean, it draws people in, the rocks and the trees and the wind.
This is the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, 30-minute conversations with women who have found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 124. Find out more about the podcast at desertladydiaries.com or engage with guests, listeners, and me on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries.
Sharon Davis is the artist and founder of Earth House Studios. After many years in and out of the desert, Sharon planted her roots in Morongo Valley and is fortunate enough to be able to live the lifestyle that she has always had in her heart. Sharon is a self-taught artist who loves color. Her primary medium is acrylic painting, and she also works in repurposed pieces. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Well, we had a little discovery when we went, I don't even know where it was that we discovered we were both from New Jersey. And towns next door to each other.
Yeah, I think it's just because we had the same last name and we kind of just started talking.
Right.
But yeah. And you meet a lot of people from Jersey out
There
here.
are a lot of people from Jersey out
Not
here.
that we've all exited or anything.
Right, exactly.
But,
I saw bumper stickers once that said, will the last person in New Jersey please turn off the lights?
I belong to a thing, Jersey Girls on Facebook, and we're always talking about the things we miss, or should we move back to Jersey, or that kind of. We mostly miss food. There isn't really anything else we miss about Jersey. Well, the wildflowers, but
Taylor ham, summer tomatoes,
hard rolls.
Yes, hard rolls, dude. When I went to, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I walked into a place and I asked, "Do you have any hard rolls?" And she looked at me and said, "What would you want to eat a stale bun for?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, you don't understand."
Oh, and the big plates of crumb buns.
Oh my gosh, yes, crumb buns.
We've been talking about Italian hot dogs on there for about 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
I finally went out yesterday and had to get myself all the stuff. I had Italian hot dogs.
So for someone who's listening that doesn't know what Italian hot dogs are.
Italian hot dog is usually like a soubrette hot dog that's fried, but then you fry potatoes, green onions, and green peppers and onions together, like fried potatoes. You put the hot dog on a really nice hard rolled bun, and you slather it with all the grease and everything from the potatoes and the onions and the green peppers. Only I did a California twist because I added
did you have avocado?
Yes, I added the avocado on top. When
I lived in Carteret, there was a guy just down the block, and he actually had a food truck. And this is back in like the mid '80s. And but he only opened on Saturday and Sunday. But I think it was Tony's Italian hot dogs or something.
Oh, we had a place called the Hoagie Hut in Findurn.
Yes.
That did the Italian hot dogs.
Oh my gosh.
And I love going there.
I love the Hoagie Hut. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Crazy. So anyway.
Before they were the Hoagie Hut, they were like a Dairy Queen.
Oh,
they
really?
Were a mom and pop Dairy Queen.
Oh my gosh.
And every Sunday, they always had the chocolate and the vanilla soft ice cream, but then they always made up one other flavor, like maple or strawberry banana.
Oh my gosh.
And that was back when I was little, so that's before all these flavors came out.
What span of time were you in that area of New Jersey?
7th grade through 24 years old.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And then, what was your first experience with desert?
Well, first I escaped New Jersey in 1974. Moved across country with 2 kids and a husband. The dog flew, but we drove across country. And we ended up in Huntington Beach.
Wow.
And then we ended up in Moreno Valley. And then I got divorced, and I ended up in Palm Springs. So I just kept... And then I was in Palm Springs for about 7 years, and then I moved back east. Then I moved back to Moreno Valley, then I moved back east, and then I moved to Texas, and then I moved back to California. Then I moved to Virginia, Baltimore, and then back to California again.
You have more moves than I do.
I said, people say, oh, we need a purge. I said, well, when you move as much as I do, you purge anyway because you're trying to squeeze everything in a pod or a truck.
Right.
But my first desert experience was moving to Palm Springs probably about 40 years ago. And I don't know, maybe it wasn't that long ago. Let's see. Probably about 28 years ago.
Okay.
And when I left back east, my kids stayed because they were grown, and except for the 16-year-old went with me. And they kept wanting me to move back. And I said, I will never move back to Palm Springs again. It's just too hot.
Yeah, I mean, what, in the summertime, it's up to 120.
120. I remember
by
122
9, 10 in the morning.
You walked with sandals, but the heat jumped off the asphalt and still burned your feet.
Yeah.
And I remember that. And by the time I decided to move back, it was, the hot flash time of my life. And there was like no way I was moving to Palm Springs. And I said, Pioneertown is really where I wanted to go. I said, it's cooler. And I told my kids, I'll only move back if I move at the end of a dirt road in the middle of nowhere and that people will leave me alone. And I would do what I want. And it happened. We found a house. We didn't find one in Pioneertown. We found one in Morongo Valley at the end of a dirt road on the last house on the road at the base of the mountain.
It's like a movie.
Last
house on the right.
It's the last house on the left, actually. Wes Craven, thank you. It was one of my favorite movies back in the 70s, was Wes Craven's very first movie, Last House on the Left. I can tell you everything about that movie. I can even tell you how they made the guts look like guts when they were squishing them around, because I read all about it.
Oh, wow.
And now I am the last house on the left.
Yeah.
But I had always been an artist since I was like 16. I always did art. And my mom had somebody come over to buy a couch. In those days you put it in the newspaper. And they came over and she saw my art, and her husband worked for Tiffany Jewelers. Wow. And she says, he's looking for an apprentice. I think you would do well with him. And I said, whoa. Really? 16, and I didn't even know really Tiffany's was someplace in New York. Right. I didn't really even know too much about it. So he was in Bound Brook, I want to say, somewhere like that, which isn't much of a distance, 15 minutes maybe. My father took me once, and I had a great time with the guy. He had another kid there who had been working with him for a while, a little boy, and who was probably about 12. And we learned how to do inlay of enamel that day with a toothpick, little pieces, before they put it in the oven to melt it. And I really liked it. And I thought, wow, that'd be great. My dad goes, no, I ain't driving you here anymore.
Oh.
So it just ended.
Yeah.
And then I was so involved with home ec in high school and designing my own clothes. And when the Monkees came out and the Beatles went to India and all the Nehru shirts came out, McCall's did not make a pattern for that. So I did. So I was making Nehru shirts for everybody, and you guys that are too young will have to look that up. But
Nehru.
Yeah.
Right? I think.
Neh. Yeah, I think it is.
Nehru.
Yeah. And so I made them for everybody in school.
Oh my gosh.
And I was elected to represent my school at the McCall's pattern board as a teenager who would have advice on what kind of patterns, so I ended up spending a day in New York.
Fun.
Which, my parents would never let me go.
Right. I know that feeling.
Yeah. Well, I skipped school enough and went anyway, but this was one of my first
I wouldn't be sitting here if I'd done that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom, but it's true.
Thank God my parents never caught me, because I had enough girlfriends that I could say I was sleeping over this one's house.
You could cover.
Yeah, and then, of course, they told their parents they were sleeping over my house.
Yeah.
But we used to hang out in the village all the time. So, I've always liked art and being creative, But then I put it aside for many years because I raised 3 kids, got divorced a couple times, raised them on my own. And you had to work.
Yeah.
You had to work and take care of the kids. And, I always did art, but I usually gave it away at Christmas time. That was my way of making Christmas presents for people. And then when I moved out here to the desert and I retired, it was like, now I could do art all the time.
How long have you been out here?
It'll be 6 years in October. So it's only been about 5.5 years.
Right. Yeah.
So all this art, and I'm really happy with how, I'm not like Snake Jagger or something.
Right.
But I ran into somebody in the store the other day, and somebody introduced me to her, and he goes, this is my friend Sharon. And she goes, Sharon Davis, the artist? And I'm like,
oh.
Whoa. And that's happened to me a couple times, and I thought, well, that's not bad for being here 5.5 years.
Exactly. Well, you have a very distinct style, I must say. It's lovely. It's so colorful with the, all the elements of the desert in most of the things that I've seen of yours. So it's really eye-catching. Yeah.
Well, the inspiration really is the desert. I mean, I love living here. I mean, I love the nights. I even like the wind most of the time if I'm not chasing stuff off my porch.
Right, I got a wind band. I have to rubber band my wind chimes.
Yeah, but and I've got a lot of found art pieces on my property. So after windstorms, I have to go out there and make sure they're all together. Do I have to rewire? Do I have to rehang? Do I have to reglue?
Right.
You know, whatever it is.
Right, because I didn't realize until reading your bio that not only do you work in paints and acrylics, which is the bright and colorful stuff I was talking about, but you also do repurposed pieces. So what kind of things?
Well, first of all, I like to recycle and repurpose things for general use. So the floors of my house are brown paper bags.
Wait, didn't you do pennies too?
The pennies are in my bathroom.
Okay.
The pennies are in my bathroom. I did not want to take on doing 3,000 pennies throughout the whole house. You know, the bathroom was enough.
Right.
The backsplash in my kitchen are broken CDs.
Oh, wow.
I have a mosaic in the living room wall made out of beer caps. My coffee table's covered in leather belts. My dining room table's covered in tin can lids and metal flashing and upholstery tacks. And
Oh, my God. Have you met Kit Brooks? Mm-mm. You should meet Kit Brooks because she has a very similar way of decorating her home like this. Yeah.
Yeah, so my idea of repurposing, I do have some art pieces that are repurposed, like I do license plate art. I do bicycle wheels that I weave antique glass plates and things in, and you hang them for, you know, sun catchers outside. I have a bunch of those for sale. My grandkids even made a fantasy forest behind the house where the trolls live. We have a population of 36 trolls.
Oh my goodness.
7 trees, all different colors, and each tree is it's the shoe tree that's full of shoes. It's the Pez Park that's full of Pez. It's the dino den that's full of dinosaurs. It's the nursery that has little baby trolls.
Oh my goodness.
There's a car lot that's full of cars. And there's a couple others, but, you know, the kids all put this together. All the people are out of there right now until after the summer, because the summer everything melts. You should see what it does to trolls when they stay out there all year round.
Really?
Oh, God. They all become blackface and the hair gets singed tight like they had those old-fashioned perms.
My Nana loved those troll dolls. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. So we took all the singed hair off and repainted all the trolls and put eyeballs of glass marbles and made hair of succulents. A lot of them have plastic succulents for their hair now.
Oh, my gosh.
And put them all back, and they're there for the art tours. You know, you can go to the Fantasy Forest, which is surrounded by a wall of vacuum cleaners that are all brightly painted, that all have signs of wisdom, like don't get sucked up in your neighbor's drama. You know, so it's interesting. When you go there is one particular sign on the vacuum that keeps getting stolen. I won't tell you what it is. So you'll have to come during the art tours,
see it. Yeah.
look at the 6 vacuums and figure out
Which one.
which sign of wisdom. The newest one is, so when you clean your vacuum, do you become a vacuum cleaner?
Wow.
Get stoned and
That's
think
deep.
of that.
That is deep.
So that was the newest word of wisdom, but that's not the one that's always stolen. And I've sided my house with tin can lids, which is easy because my son owns a restaurant and I get all the lids from him.
So they have two guys
Brick oven pizza,
which is the best pizza, I have to say, in the basin, especially coming from the East
Jersey,
Coast.
yep.
Oh my God. My brother was here in October and I took him there. He goes, dude, if I lived here, I'd be here every night. Yep. And then they have Mojave Moon Cafe in 29 Palms, which is in an old, like, Rexall drugstore, corner store, which has delicious food and great coffee. And
Joshua Tree Coffee Company. Attached to that is Mojave Soul, which is a gift shop.
Right, and that has a lot of art and books and all kinds of stuff in
my
there.
art's there. Snake Jagger, Kathy Miller. There's a lot of people, you know, that have their art there.
So when you moved to town, how did you just automatically gravitate to the community of artists here to meet people?
Well, and it's, you know, it just like went boom. First, I joined the Art Colony in Morongo Valley, which is the longest consecutively running art association in the Morongo Basin.
Right, it's a bit of a misnomer because I went out there to see the colony, and was there ever one?
No, it was just a group of people that used to. At one point, they met at the Morongo Valley Elementary School, I think it was at the time. They used to meet there, or at somebody's garage, or at the firehouse. I mean, and then at Covington Park, where we actually have our gift shop and gallery, used to be a stall
Oh.
You know, like it was a bunch of stalls like for a fair that were
Okay.
open and everything. And so
Yeah.
they enclosed the buildings. And so we used to just meet in the one room. And probably about 7 years ago, we turned it into a gift shop gallery.
Right. It's lovely too. There's a lot of, and it changes.
Yeah, and it's all local artists. And if you're a member, you get Artist of the Month and you get to display your stuff in the center. We do first and third Saturday children's art lessons. We do a fall festival. We do 2 art shows for children during the year, 2 for adults. It's all volunteer, and maybe we have 35 members. You know, we have
But
monthly
really
potlucks.
active. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's little. People haven't even heard of it. They don't even know it's there because it's not on the main street. It's
Right.
hidden. No real big signs.
Right.
You know, but the community there, the CSD has been really good with us with helping us stay in the building and trying
That's
to
a
do stuff.
County special
Yeah.
districts, right? Because it's unincorporated.
Yes.
So the county kind of
Yeah.
manages that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they have their own little people that take care of the fire company in the park, and we're part of the Covington Park is like back end of the preserve in Morongo Valley, and that's how most people run into it. They're bird watchers or hikers or something like that. We're not open all the time. We're open on Wednesdays and the weekends, but again, it's run by all volunteers. But it's a cute little place. I'm the president. Snake Jagger's the vice president, and a lot of volunteers do a lot of hard work to keep it
Yeah,
going.
that's
You know,
great.
because it's so little.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit because we had a lunch date at the pizza place, and you were talking to me about the sweat lodge.
Yes.
And that.
And that's how I got into the sweat lodge. Is the
Oh.
president at the time in
Okay.
Morongo Valley Art Colony was Cherokee. And my background is Cherokee, and we started talking, and I told her I always wanted to do a sweat lodge. She goes, well, we do sweat lodges. And so I was invited to a sweat lodge, and it's like I never looked back.
So for someone listening who isn't familiar with the sweat lodge, what is all entailed in that?
A sweat lodge is the way it's called an inipi ceremony. It's the way that some tribes pray. And it's honoring the directions, it's honoring Creator. It gives you a chance to pray for others, yourself, letting go of things you don't need. It's like a kind of like so you could be reborn and see the light, and everybody has their own interpretation of it, you know. And it gets very complicated because there's a lot of things involved. There's different altars and things like that. But it's basically a way to pray. It involves hot rocks and a lot of songs, my teachings are Lakota, even though I'm Cherokee. Cherokee won't teach you anything if you're not full blood. And Lakota is more like if we could get a lot of them. Black Elk speaks. Black Elk is kind of like the teachings, it's the Standing Buffalo teachings. And he feels that the more the word of the teachings get out, maybe this world could get back in balance, because it's about honoring the Creator, the earth, which is our mother. All animals, all living things should be honored, and more things are living than you think.
Right.
Like
So in a typical sweat lodge ceremony, how many people are in the lodge itself, and how long does it last? And
Creator's completely in control of how long it lasts. The intercessor is there, the one who pours the rocks and kind of protects everybody in there. The Creator lets him know if somebody needs to be in there longer, if somebody needs to let go of something, if everybody's on the same wavelength. This is not a new age thing. This is the native way, and it's different than the new age. You know, this isn't la la la. You know,
Right.
this is you get in there and you pray. You pray hard. You pray hard for what you want. Gratitude. You know, the last round, there's 4 rounds in a sweat lodge. The last round is you show gratitude for what you have and what you don't have. Like, I have gratitude that I have good health, that I don't have all these illnesses that you could have. You know, so, and I have gratitude for my family and my neighbors and my animals and all that. And it's about awakening and being in. If you're watering a tree, it will talk to you and thank you for watering it. You know, these are things that people lost touch with.
Right.
You know, so the sweat lodge is the very first kind of step in that. And you can go and you can do the sweat lodge, and that may be enough, but you may have search of more, you know.
Yeah.
I have a Native American installation art piece on my property that I did 4 years ago representing 8 Native American massacres that were slaughtered, and they were either flying under the white flag or only the women and children and elderly were there. You know, it was uncalled for. And I'm doing another one this weekend.
Let's talk about that, because I think that's something that I've seen it sprinkled in the news, but I don't think a lot of people are aware of what's happening.
And they're not, because who has a handle on it are the Canadians.
Really?
Because they're First Nation people, which are their indigenous people. We call them Native American here, and they're, First Nations. They have a database, and they've been keeping track since like 96 of the women, the Native American women that have gone missing. And we're not talking about a little bit. We're talking about, as of 96, there was over 6,000 documented women or children missing, females. Just missing.
Just missing.
Or murdered. Some of them they found, some of them they didn't. I mean, if I went through like 150 names the other day just to get an idea for my ceremony, and out of all the ones that were murdered, that they knew were murdered, maybe 2 were resolved.
Wow.
Or solved.
Do they think that some of them are also being sex trafficked?
The sex trafficking, there's a lot of alcoholism on the reservations, and they may have been in the wrong place of mind at the time and got involved with the wrong person. It's something like 60% of any violence the Native American woman has upon her is done by non-Native.
Oh.
So it's not a Native American problem, it's a problem for everybody. If you Google murdered and missing Indigenous women, there are so many articles that are really there about what's happening. And I was surprised on the ages. 14, 15, 16, 20s, couple in the 80s. They just don't know what's happening.
So you're having is it a ceremony? And then that will turn into a installation at your property. Is that what I understand?
Yes. It'll be a ceremony. We'll be hanging red dresses, and the red dresses represent the blood of the missing women. It was started by an artist, and she did it, I know she did it in Washington, D.C., and I really, for the life of me, can't remember her name. Because doing the research for the ceremony, there's so much information out there that I didn't even realize there was so much information. And there's so much that isn't categorized in one place. So you're taking bits and pieces of information from here and there and trying to make something timeline that makes kind of sense.
Right.
They have it at the Smithsonian Institute where they hang the red dresses. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to hang the red dresses. We're going to say some of the names of the women that I've been able to find. Most of them are Canadian. I mean, they have the database, and we don't.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think our government still doesn't care about Native Americans.
Yeah.
They're still disposable people. They're putting pipelines through. It's just not a good thing.
Like continuing to erase that which was there and has been there all this time.
There's no liquor stores allowed on the reservations. So the white people put them at the gates. So it's just very destructive.
Well, it's another situation of humans preying on humans, which is just...
They're in a cycle, and they've been doing this for hundreds of years, and they just can't seem to get out of it. Jackson, he did the whole Trail of Tears and sticking natives on the worst piece of property you can find.
Right.
Lincoln, he okayed the last mass hanging of 52 Native Americans, if I remember correctly how many it was, all at one time. So it's been going on. We weren't allowed to pray until the Freedom of Religious Act. I think it was Carter, like in 76 or something like that. All the ceremonies had to be secret. So now the ceremonies and the dance is art. My little ceremony is going to be me trying to get the word out. What I'm saying is get the conversation started and keep it going.
Do your part where you can.
Yeah, or at least know that it's going on.
Right.
I mean, the average Joe can't do too much about it. But you can be aware of something else is happening to people that really we slaughtered and we took over this land. We conquered this land. Right. We're as bad as anybody else coming in trying to take the land from us. So these people, they're proud. I mean, these ceremonies have been around for hundreds of years. And there's a certain way to do it. I mean, I spent an hour on the phone with my chief talking to him about the things I wanted to do at the ceremony, what was protocol and what wasn't.
Right.
So I'm just trying to do my little bit saying, hey, people, feel this.
Right.
Put it out there. Say their names. Let them know that we care. If there's nothing else we can do, care about this is going on. So really Google it, because there's
So
much information on it, I can't even. But after the ceremony, we'll cleanse the area and it will be an art piece. And I have 3 or 4 installation art pieces on the outside of my property, so you can come by anytime that you want. And I have information boxes there for the 2 Native American ones.
Right,
so
because by the time the podcast comes out, the ceremony will have happened.
Yes,
it's happening
yes.
soon.
I may try to, send some of the information to the newspaper so they can actually show a couple pictures, and people who want to just see it,
right.
Can come by. I don't care. I mean, it's a dirt road, and
right.
you should walk to the installation pieces, because you shouldn't go past my driveway, otherwise your car is going to sink in the sand.
Oh, well,
but it's part of living,
Right.
And that's part of the desert life.
Exactly.
And that's what I like living there.
Right.
Is my neighbors are very supportive. I painted half my house purple, and there isn't a neighbor that said anything about it. I have one that drops off all broken mirrors because he deals with replacing mirrors and windows and stuff. So I put mirrors all over my fence. Mm-hmm. I have another one that drops off wine bottles. I have another one that anything that's broken, she'll drop off at my house. And then I have another neighbor that will call me before he goes to the dump and says, "Do you need any of this stuff? I'm dropping off at the dump." So my next project is I need bicycle rims, because I'm going to build a fence out of bicycle rims and gears on the corner of my property, which is going to be my new installation. I did side my porch with wine bottles. So
they look beautiful when they're in that sort of a display. They're really gorgeous. Really gorgeous.
So art is just something that this desert has so inspired me, and get involved in. It's been easy to get in the art world here. Everybody is welcoming. Yeah. Nobody's jealous. Everybody's supportive. It's this whole area, 29, Wonder Valley, Joshua Tree, and all the landers, Morongo Valley. Morongo Valley kind of gets left out of it.
Yeah, because you got that grade in between everything. The
little newspaper of all the businesses in the areas and stuff, they never ever put any business from Morongo Valley. We do have the Cactus Mart.
And that's lovely.
And I'd like the art colony to be focused on, once, for people to know it's there and to see the hard work that the volunteers are doing to help the community. And there's people in this community that are very involved with people. And then there are people that want to be left alone. So it's very unique. The desert is very cleansing. And it's also, if you're supposed to be here.
Right.
I mean, it draws people in. The rocks and the trees and the wind, and it all
like
talks
a vacuum.
to you. Yeah. and it's, it's not quite like Sedona, where Sedona has so many vortexes that you can either make it there or you can't, because you can't deal with your emotions. But it's kind of like that.
Definitely. The way I like to put it is that it just strips everything away. All those layers that you've piled on yourself, all those masks that you've put on yourself, it just kind of strips all of that stuff away.
And it's such a difference from Palm Springs to here, and it's 20 minutes. Like
Completely.
Palm Springs, not only is it hotter, but if you're not wearing Gucci or Tiffany or something, you feel out of place, or at least gold shoes. Right. I'm not saying anything bad about the people in Palm Springs. No. It's just a different. You've become a desert rat when you go shopping in a pair of sweats and an old T-shirt, and you don't care that you don't have lipstick on and nobody looks at you. It's interesting on what you will do out. I mean.
Well, and I think that goes to just being comfortable then with who you are, and people know what you are as a soul, and on the inside, and the outside doesn't really matter much.
And I think that's why a lot of celebrities are attracted to the desert out here, because they can be themselves, and people won't hound them or bother them. I mean, they may ask for a selfie or something, but more or less a person can sit down and have a cup of coffee and be famous and not have a bunch of paparazzi hanging around. And it is very conducive. I mean, it's creative as far as people raising horses and art, because to me, everybody's an artist. I don't care who you are. You're an artist somehow. That brain surgeon is an artist. If he can get that little tumor out of the inside of my brain and I can still walk and talk, that's being an artist. Yeah. Not that I had a tumor. I'm just saying.
Don't worry, kids.
Yeah. or the guy who can detail your car, or the woman who knits. I could not knit for all the tea in China. I just have a bunch of holes in the whole thing. And I even tried knitting for my Barbie doll, and it didn't work, When you got to the sleeves, it's like, okay, it's going to be a vest.
Well, I think the term that people are using these days is you're operating in your zone of genius. And I guess another way to put it is using the gifts you were naturally given to contribute to your part in the world.
Yeah.
basically.
And that's basically it. I mean, I took art lessons in high school. And as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I found my art teacher in high school.
Oh, wow.
And God, I had a crush on that man. I mean, you're 17 in high school and he was 24. When all the other teachers were in their 50s or even 40s, and you thought that was old. Nice guy. Really, really funny and nice. And I thought, well, gee, he's not that much older than me, so he should still be alive. And he was, and I found him, and I sent him a card, and I told him thank you. Because I remember one art class, there was this girl that was so talented. I mean, she could take a picture and put it on canvas, and every single detail of that picture would be on that canvas. And I'd do something, and it wouldn't look like that. And I got an A, like she got an A. I said, well, how can I get an A? Well, that deserves an A. Yeah, I see that. And he said, because it's all coming out of your brain. You're not being a computer and taking something you're seeing and copying it. You're interpreting it. You're putting the feeling into it. You're doing that. That encouraged me. And I was in high school during the 60s. So my artwork was very creative. And off the, a little bit inspired by the Magical Mystery Tour. And, so I said, he had to be a good art teacher to appreciate that.
Absolutely, yeah. And it must have been such a gift for him to receive a thank you from a student.
Oh, yeah, he wrote me back an email.
Aw.
One of my other students, one of the students in the class with me, has his own podcast and little interview thing he does online and called Enemy's Corner. And he's been an artist, and he's a fabulous artist. He does a lot of not portrait work. Like, he'll just all of a sudden take a thing and take the paper and do a bunch of lines, and you turn it around, and it's Bob Dylan. And you're like, wow, look at that. Wow. So he's really talented. And he did a little interview of me and my work out here, and that teacher hopped online and says she was always one of my best students. And she was always creative, and it's just really nice. Mr. Seabees, he was just a great, he was a great teacher.
Yeah.
But back then you didn't think, oh, I can't make a living in art. I got to do something else.
Right.
But he influenced my life a lot.
Sounds like it. Well, I am so glad that you came to talk with me today. But before you go, I'm going to ask you to pick out 2 chips on which there are numbers, and the numbers correspond with questions, and the answers to those questions will be available exclusively to Patreon supporters of the Desert Lady Diary podcast. So the first question will be, what's your favorite fairy tale or childhood book? The next question will be, you're having a rough day, what do you do, and how do you turn it around? Then we'll go to, what is something people would be surprised to learn about you? And how ironic, your top 3 favorite pizza toppings. If you want to hear Sharon's answers to those questions, go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and check out the Patreon option. Thanks again for being here today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I've got shout-outs to Tanya M. and Cynthia L. Thank you so much for signing up for the new episode newsletter. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this podcast and you think you know someone else who would, I hope you'll share it with a friend. Goodness knows some of us have been blessed with time on our hands due to some of the state mandates that have come down in California and other states with regard to social distancing in an effort to prevent the spread of the coronavirus or COVID-19. I considered not mentioning anything about this at all as part of the podcast, but because the episodes will live in a historical archive, I felt it couldn't be ignored. It's a reality of what we are experiencing not only in the Morongo Basin, but in the United States and the world. To that end, if you would like to share some activities or projects that you're working on, or just your perspectives on the current state of our world and nation due to this viral pandemic, please email your thoughts to desertladydiaries@gmail.com. It might help someone else who's listening. As far as Soul Connection is concerned, I joined some fellow area business owners in temporarily closing the shop prior to the California mandate. As a new business owner, as you might imagine, this was very difficult, and depending on how long this goes on and what kind of assistance may or may not be provided to small businesses, and whether I qualify as a new business, I may be forced to close Soul Connection completely, and that is really sad for me. However, in addition to being a business owner, I am also a resident of this community. Being located in an internationally known tourist destination in a small rural area with few medical resources, it is critical that our community have as few visitors as possible. Many folks visit from areas overseas affected by the pandemic, as well as domestic cities and counties that are only now learning of confirmed cases in their areas. The first case in neighboring Yucca Valley was just announced on Friday, March 20th. There have been a number of local merchants who are opening up online shops to stay open. I'm a little conflicted about that because I feel like there are a lot of people during this time that are going to have some really dire financial circumstances and not a lot of disposable income to be spending on things that I carry in my shop. I'm working on perhaps opening up a square shop, but again, I'm very conflicted about even marketing it and putting it out there because of the economic conditions that this is causing. So stay tuned. I continue to reframe this as an opportunity to spend some time reflecting, as well as tackling some other projects that I've been waiting and wanting to work on. To stay focused, I'm continuing to get up at my usual 5:30 alarm, sit, meditate, do some journaling, have some breakfast, wash up, dress, and have scheduled activities throughout the day as normal. Give yourself some time to go for a walk or read some non-work related materials. And if you find yourself becoming anxious as you scroll through social media, shut it down, walk away, throw on some music, and dance. Stay informed, be discerning about where you receive your information from, educate yourself, and most of all, be safe. Also, there will be another episode for you in 2 weeks. So until then, thanks so much for listening.